Our story begins on Coruscant, as Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Chancellor Palpatine are arriving back at the Executive Building. The two Jedi have just rescued the Chancellor and killed Count Dooku, essentially speeding up how quickly this dreadful war will come to an end. But Grievous escaped, and the war will go on until he is caught. But despite all of the action, all of the heroics, Anakin could only think of one thing as the shuttle approached the building. He saw the large group of politicians awaiting their return, and all Anakin could think about was how much he missed Padme. So, when the shuttle landed and the three of them moved through the group, Anakin immediately became extremely worried, as Padme was nowhere to be seen. It didn't make any sense, but soon, Anakin spotted C-3PO awkwardly waving him down, so he excused himself and ran over to the droid with an ounce of fear rising up in him. 3PO greeted Anakin, then told him to come with him to find Senator Amidala. These words brought relief to Anakin's mind, and he followed 3PO into a fancy speeder with a driver inside of it, and the driver would bring Anakin across the city and over to the best medical facility here. Again, fear was felt, and Anakin would sprint inside of the facility, get Padme's room number, and finally he would run inside to find Padme laying down, clearly exhausted, and there were two small pods right next to her. Padme smiled up at Anakin, then sleepily just said, "Surprise, they have twins." All of Anakin's fears sank away, and the moment he ran up to hug Padme, asking what happened. Padme said she wanted to tell Anakin she was pregnant in person, but when the Separatists attacked, the chaos of it all was just too much exertion for her body, and the twins decided it was time. Anakin was introduced to Luke and Leia, his very own children, and it was perhaps the happiest moment of his entire life. Nothing else mattered. But, of course, that could only go on for so long. After many wonderful hours with Padme and the twins, Anakin got a message from Obi-Wan asking where he was. Anakin never gave a report about the mission to the Chancellor's representatives or to the Jedi Council, so Kenobi was just making sure he was available. Anakin said he would be around, and the day would soon go on. But first, Anakin and Padme had to come up with a plan. Anakin quickly came to the realization that his children are going to be extremely powerful in the Force. And with this war spiraling to an end, the Sith, wherever they may be hiding, could try to take the Skywalker children for themselves. Padme understood this was a real danger with how serious Anakin was, so they decided that the Senate will be informed that Padme went back to Naboo to prepare for the birth. No one knew the twins were born already, so this was good, and Padme would actually stay here on Coruscant, in the hospital room that was having the name changed to one of her handmaidens. It was a plan good enough to work, hopefully. She and the children just had to hide until the Sith were defeated, so Anakin planned to make that happen as soon as possible. But that very night, something strange would happen. Anakin was alone in his temple room, finally able to fall asleep after tossing and turning, thinking about just wanting to be with his family. And as he slept, nightmares came to Anakin. He saw Padme alone on a medical table from some alien world he didn't recognize. She was calling out for Anakin, screaming in pain, as Obi-Wan was next to her, saying it's going to be alright. And Anakin realized this dream, or this vision, was of Padme dying in childbirth. But that made no sense. Anakin jolted awake, shaking his head. Why would the Force show him a dream of a future that was simply impossible? Padme was safe. She was alright. This made no sense. But across Coruscant, Darth Sidious was unaware that Padme gave birth. He didn't feel the emergence of the twins, as he was off-world, handling other business with Dooku and Anakin. So, Sidious was projecting these nightmares to Anakin now, trying to play off his fears, unaware that Anakin already knew these dreams will not be coming true. And when morning came around, Anakin requested a visit with Yoda, and he would sit with the Grandmaster, asking about these visions. Anakin told Yoda that he saw events play out that were impossible, as if the Force were showing him an alternate timeline where things went differently. Yoda silently wished Anakin was giving a bit more context here, but Yoda just said that perhaps the Force is playing with Anakin's fears, and it is showing him that not all premonitions will come true. Sometimes, the Force provides warnings, but sometimes deciphering these messages is impossible, and they can be thrown away as just a bad dream. This would help to calm Anakin, and he thanked Yoda before heading off to Palpatine's office. The Chancellor was waiting for him. When Anakin entered, Palpatine fully expected Anakin to have an aura of fear or anger surrounding him from the dreams last night. But to Palpatine's surprise, Anakin was not only calm, he was happy. Anakin actually seemed much more upbeat than he has at all during this war, and Palpatine didn't think this was because of Dooku's death. In fact, Dooku's death was perhaps the main thing still clouding Anakin's mind. Palpatine quickly decided this was something else, something even he hadn't expected. But for now, Palpatine would promote Anakin to be his personal representative on the Jedi Council, and this honor was very exciting for Anakin. Although, once again, Palpatine was surprised to feel Anakin's emotions not change very much. He knew now that there was something going on out here on Coruscant that has changed. And when Anakin was gone, Palpatine became determined to figure out exactly what he missed. In the Jedi Council, Anakin would be granted the seat given to him by Palpatine, but he would not be made a Jedi Master. And when Anakin heard this, he was angry, frustrated, jealous, but he had to calm himself down. Right now, all that mattered was finding the Sith and ending this war. So after the meeting, Obi-Wan would pull Anakin aside and ask Anakin to spy on Palpatine on behalf of the Council, as the Council believes that Palpatine could have someone in his inner circle close to Darth Sidious. And so as much as Anakin disagreed with spying on Palpatine, he would decide that if Palpatine is somehow close to Sidious, then he will do it. He agreed to be the spy. Obi-Wan was greatly relieved by this, and the two of them went their separate ways for now. But across Coruscant, inside of his office, Palpatine was now combing through the medical records of the best facilities on Coruscant, looking for Padme, thinking that's what he could have missed. She was nowhere to be found on record, so Palpatine switched up his plans, contacting Captain Panaka of Naboo, demanding to know where Senator Amidala is. Panaka was one of the lead security heads of the planet, and he knew where Padme was at all times. He knew she was on Coruscant, pretending to be on Naboo. So when Panaka hesitated to give Palpatine his answer, the Chancellor smiled and told Panaka that if he gives him the answers he desires, then he will make him the immediate governor of Naboo. Panaka hesitated once more, so Palpatine said that if he refuses to give up this information, then he will be relieved of duty for refusing a direct order from the Chancellor in these dire times. Panaka wondered if Palpatine could even do that, but he knew that Palpatine's emergency powers gave him the authority to pretty much do whatever he wants. Palpatine was essentially an emperor in every way except for his title. So Panaka would choose his own success, telling Palpatine that Padme is in the lead medical facility as she just gave birth to twins. Palpatine asked why this is not on record, and Panaka said it was by request of General Skywalker. So Palpatine now saw the game he was being played in. Anakin seems to think he can get ahead of the Sith. That is a mistake he never should have made, Palpatine thought, and Palpatine quickly realized that his plans to turn Anakin were on life support. With Padme and the twins alive, Anakin will do whatever he can to end this war and be with them, even if it means taking down Palpatine. So, Darth Sidious decided that he must instead get rid of Anakin and take his children as the next Sith apprentices. They will never know anything except for the dark side, and they will become the perfect enforcers of his eternal empire. But Anakin must be taken down. So after a while, Anakin would say goodbye to Obi-Wan as the Jedi Master was taking off for Utapau to destroy Grievous. Anakin was anxious as taking down Grievous could force Palpatine to end this war. But then Anakin got a communication from Palpatine telling him to come alone to his suite in 500 Republica. And Anakin knew this would be the perfect opportunity to spy on Palpatine, so he took off. And upon arrival to the huge building, a Senate guard in blue armor asked for Anakin's lightsaber, saying that no weapons are allowed in this building after Palpatine's recent capture. Anakin said he is a Jedi Council member, and he will be keeping his lightsaber, but the guard said this is not an option. Anakin sighed heavily, then placed his saber down in a small vault and moved towards the elevator. This elevator went up 1,000 floors to Palpatine's suite, so Anakin got inside and he prepared to talk with the Chancellor. The elevator doors would slide open with a soft chime, revealing the sleek, sterile interior of this 1,000-floor express lift in 500 Republica. Anakin boarded the lift, weaponless, and the doors closed him in. The lift began its smooth, silent ascent. He was alone for the first 50 floors. The city lights drifted down behind the glass windows of the elevator shaft, and Anakin folded his arms, exhaling slowly, senses brushing the edges of the Force. Something was off. Not wrong, it was just quiet, at least for now. The elevator would stop at floor 153, and 4 Senate guards stepped in, dressed in their usual blue robes and helmets with their blasters at the ready. Anakin shook his head. Why did they get to be armed? Anakin offered a polite nod, but none of them returned it. They just watched the glowing numbers above the door climb higher. They stopped again at floor 271, and 2 of Palpatine's personal red guards entered, the Emperor's chosen elite. They carried their force pikes, barely glancing at each other. Anakin tensed a bit more, and then the lift stopped again at floor 414. 2 larger men who looked very much like bounty hunters slunk inside. One was wearing some Beskar armor, scarred by blaster fire, a vibroblade sheathed at his back. The other had a long scar running down his bald head, a disruptor rifle strapped across his chest. Anakin's eyes narrowed. This was getting strange. Bounty hunters in 500 Republica, with guards. Armed? Something was very off, but Anakin waited. They didn't look at him. No one did. And then another stop. Floor 519. A Jedi Temple guard stepped in. Anakin's heart skipped. The golden mask, the white robes, double-bladed saber staff clipped at his side. Wait, he wasn't supposed to be armed, Anakin thought. No one was. Anakin felt the tiny shift in energy as the elevator doors closed again, sealing him in with 9 other bodies and a creeping sense of dread. Anakin's breath began to slow. The hum of the elevator dimmed in his ears. He opened himself to the Force, gently, carefully, like running a finger through still water, and he could feel the senses of everyone in here. There was tension, nervousness, anticipation. They weren't just standing there. They were waiting. Anakin didn't move, but he spoke in a quiet, cold voice, simply asking the group, "Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?" A moment of silence felt like an hour, and then everything exploded. One of the Senate guards lunged first, swinging a stun baton for Anakin's head, and he ducked under the arc, driving his elbow up into the guard's ribs, grabbing the baton mid-swing, ripping it from the man's grasp, using the Force to enhance his strength. He jabbed the electrified end backwards into the other guard's chest, sending him convulsing against the wall. A red guard moved in next, force pike aimed for Anakin's throat. Anakin deflected it with a stolen baton, pivoting into a spinning kick, sending the red guard crashing into the glass wall of this elevator. It cracked violently. The bounty hunters began to open fire, but in such tight quarters it was chaos. Anakin flicked his wrist to move the blasters, then he darted forward, grabbing the red guard's fallen pike, throwing it like a spear. It impaled the disruptor rifle, forcing it upward just as it discharged, blowing a chunk out of the ceiling, killing one of the hunters. Shattered glass rained down. Anakin moved like a blur, disarming the first bounty hunter with a brutal punch to the neck, flipping him into the control panel. Sparks erupted, lights flickered, the elevator kept on rising, and now the Temple Guard was moving in, calm, precise, igniting one end of his saber staff with a hiss, swinging it in a brutal downward arc. Anakin barely dodged, the blaze grazing his shoulder, burning fabric and skin. He hissed through his teeth, rolling under a follow-up strike, grabbing one of the fallen pikes and meeting the saber staff in a shower of sparks. Anakin snarled at the guard, asking who sent him, parrying another strike. The Temple Guard, of course, didn't answer, just pressing forward. One of the Senate guards tried to restrain Anakin from behind, but Anakin headbutted him viciously, grabbed his arm and threw him into the window. Glass shattered, wind screamed in. Anakin threw another one out. They were now 600 floors up, the city barely visible below. Anakin kicked another red guard into the open air, and the man screamed all the way down. The last bounty hunter tried to tackle him, but Anakin grabbed the man by the vest, ripping his blaster free, blasting the ceiling above them. Emergency brakes slammed on. The elevator jerked. Everyone stumbled. Anakin took out 2 more of them. He used the moment, diving forward and slamming a baton against the Temple Guard saberstaff hilt, disabling it for now. He then kicked the guard's knee inward, spun and elbowed him across the temple, cracking the golden mask. The guard reached out, using the Force to pull Anakin into him. So Anakin embraced this, and he tackled this guard through the cracked window. They burst out into the open sky out of the elevator, falling, fighting, grappling in free fall as Coruscant's towers streaked around them. The guard slashed. Anakin twisted, the blade carved right past him, and he slammed a knee into the man's gut mid-fall, ripping the saberstaff from his hand. They spiraled downward even more. Anakin ignited the other side, slashing through the guard's chest. Then he kicked him away and stabbed the saber into the wall of the building as they fell, slowing himself with a shower of sparks and metal. Anakin crashed hard onto a landing platform, rolling away, battered, bruised, and he lay there, panting, His robes were torn, blood was in his mouth, shoulder in searing pain from the blade. But above him, smoke poured from the elevator shaft. The platform's guards had fled. The entire building was now being locked down. All 9 of Anakin's attackers were dead, knocked out, or falling. Only Anakin remained. He pushed himself up to one knee, grabbed the staff, and stared towards the upper levels of 500 Republica as everything slowly began to click. Obi-Wan told him that Palpatine was close to Sidious. Anakin was told to spy on Palpatine. Anakin decided now that if Palpatine isn't working directly with Sidious, then he is Sidious. Anakin began to scale the wall, using the Force to hide his pain, climbing forever until finally he reached Palpatine's suite, only to find the window was already shattered. Anakin leapt inside, igniting the yellow saber, and looked around only to find it was empty. Immediately, Anakin realized where Palpatine, Sidious, has gone. Padme. And then Anakin saw it a second before it went off. A bomb placed here beeped rapidly, and Anakin sighed dramatically before leaping as far as he could back out of the window. The huge explosion hit him in the back, pushing Anakin far out, causing him to flail around as he discarded of his fiery robe as he fell through the countless stories in open air. Luckily, nearby, a shuttle carrying Mace Windu and Kit Fisto saw the explosion, and Windu saw Anakin flying out of the window. It was honestly the least surprising thing Windu has ever seen, and he ordered the clone pilot to go and catch that Jedi. Windu and Fisto were here to check on the lockdown of 500 Republica, only to find this new explosion. The pilot flew near Anakin, and Windu was able to pull Anakin inside as Anakin crashed down before urgently telling Windu to get them to the Coruscant medical facility. Anakin knew there was not time to explain, so he just said that Padme is there with his children, Palpatine is Darth Sidious, and Sidious is going for his children. Windu wanted to know more. He had around 1,000 questions based on this, but he had all the information he really needed, so Windu guided the pilot down to the facility. As Anakin slumped against the ship door, Windu and Fisto talked about what they now know. Palpatine placed that bomb, knowing Anakin may end up in there. He's going to frame the Jedi for trying to kill him. Windu and Fisto knew that he must be stopped, and the speeder landed outside the facility. Inside of it, Padme was calmly holding the twins when she suddenly saw one of the doctors outside of her room be lifted off of her feet. The doctor's neck snapped as she was thrown into the room. Padme grabbed her blaster, firing it at the attacker, but Sidious just brushed the shots away and pulled the blaster back into his hands. Padme was suddenly being lifted up by her throat as the children were set down on the bed, and Padme could feel her life fading. Sidious smiled as he nearly closed his fingers, but suddenly he was hit with a force push, slamming into the wall as Padme was dropped to the floor, alive. She put the twins in their pod, and she got out of here, as Anakin, Windu, and Fisto stood in front of Sidious. Windu wished a few other Jedi, maybe Sazitin and Agen Kolar, were here, but he had to wonder how long they may even last in this duel. Sidious ignited his red blade, quietly impressed that Anakin survived everything, and soon they clashed their blades together in the hospital. The surgical pods hanging from the ceiling swayed around, crashing to the floor with violent bursts of steam and glass. Anakin ducked under Sidious's whirlwind of slashes, and Fisto circled around him, using the narrow halls of the emergency trauma wing to try and corral the Sith Lord. Mace Windu went Sidious head on, blades crashing together, sparks spraying along the walls, and Sidious darted through the intensive care unit, slashing through repulsor beds, shattering the glow panels that lit up their path. The darkness gave him cover, attacks becoming bursts of red rage and the strobing emergency lights. Kit pursued him into the next medical wing, only to be met with a violent blast of lightning as Sidious then shut a pair of blast doors to separate Fisto from Anakin and Windu. Fisto moved in, but Sidious twirled around him, then drove his saber upward through Kit's spine with a quick hiss, and Fisto's green skin glowed red for a heartbeat before he collapsed to the floor. Anakin and Windu cut through the doors, then they saw Fisto on the floor. Mace hurled himself at Sidious in this new area where surgical droids scrambled, machines sparked uselessly. Their sabers clashed atop an empty patient bed, both men a blur of movement, but Sidious swung low and twisted, sending a precise slice right through Windu's left elbow. Mace fell back with a roar of pain, clutching the cauterized arm, lightsaber falling into the shadows below. Sidious slammed his blade down to kill Windu, but Anakin blocked it, then kicked Sidious out of the room window and into the halls. Anakin pulled Windu's blade into his open hand and pushed Sidious back into the reception desk. Anakin had two sabers, hammering against Sidious's furious strikes. Glass shattered, databank sparked, and medical monitors exploded under stray swings. With a sudden leap, Anakin drove both sabers down on the Sith Lord. One of them caught the Sith's lightsaber hilt, cleaving it in two, and the other drove right through his chest. Sidious let out a guttural sound as he crumpled, darkness evaporating with him. The alarms continued to scream, red lights bathing Anakin in a haze of fire and blood, as around him the facility was broken. Kit Fisto lay dead, Windu barely conscious, and clone troopers poured in as Anakin dropped the sabers, putting up his hands, standing over the dead body of Chancellor Palpatine. It would take about a week of extremely tense trials, but in the end, the Jedi Council would present enough evidence to convict the fallen Palpatine of being the Sith Lord working with the Separatists, and Anakin would be free to live his life with Padme and the children. When it was over, Obi-Wan joked with Anakin that he always gets into the most trouble whenever they're not together, but in the end, he was able to defeat Grievous. Ahsoka would return safely with the captured Maul, and the war would come to an end once both sides came to a peaceful agreement, as neither side was right in their beliefs. Corruption infected everyone, but Anakin finally had the life he always wanted, and before long, he would become a Jedi Master, as his children would become Jedi just like their father before them. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. It's a video idea I've had for a while. One I got from one of you guys a long while ago, and I wrote down and just kind of waited it out and was like, I want to do this now. So, yeah. Appreciate you guys listening. Hallway scene. Have you guys ever seen Captain America? Wow. Probably. That's what, I mean, obviously that's what I based that off of, Winter Soldier. So, enjoyed that. I thought that was pretty fun. Palpatine, paid off some guards, or just had guards that were working for him to kill. And the Temple Guard was the Grand Inquisitor. They're all dead. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.